In this video will be shown how to properly set up a connection to a Genprinter interface, via the generic printer protocol. The generic printer protocol is a protocol where you receive plain text. As example, at an ESP there is a protocol with 4 fields what are received from MobiCall. On generic printer there is no definition of the protocol. All text what is received can be used for alarming and message forwarding. To set up the Genprinter interface, open up the NewVoice setup wizard from the desktop. On the left side change to interface settings. Here can be found some interfaces what can be activated on this MobiCall alarm server. The last checkbox on this page is the one what is needed for the Genprinter interface. Activate the checkbox serial interface with unidirectional generic printer protocol for receiving alarms with MobiCall. Messages can only be received via Genprinter and not sent. Click on Apply and change to the now popped up generic printer settings on the left side. Now start to define the interface by selecting the COM port in the first drop-down menu. Define the baud rate with the next drop-down menu. This settings always depends on the third-party system. Define the data bits, the parity and the stop bits. Once set up, click on the Apply button at the bottom of this page and close the setup wizard by pressing the OK button. Open the NewVoice line monitor on the desktop. In the top left corner click on System and then click on Auto Start. Now start the currently added program NVGenprinter.x by selecting it and clicking the Start button at the right side. Close the window by pressing the OK button. Now the interface is started and needs to be tested. First start up the NewVoice interface monitor. If the interface is connected to the COM port of the server, it should be shown with a green icon beside. Similar to ASP, this green icon does not mean that the interface is connected to the third-party system. This green icon does just mean that the interface is properly connected to a COM port. If you are setting up the interface at the customer system or you have the third-party system in your environment, connect it with an RS-232 cable and try to send messages to MobiCall. When you see the messages, then the interface receives the alarms. When there is a connection but the message is not received properly, check the serial parameters. If those are correct and there are still issues, contact NewVoice support. If you are not at the customer and the third-party system is not here to test, you can simply test the interface with a second COM port or with a second computer with a COM port. For this, go to d:/nvt/utils/hyperterminal and install the hyperterminal. On installed, open up the hyperterminal, choose your country, region, given an area code and click on OK. Confirm the next window again with a click on OK and confirm one more time the request that you need to set up a connection to a modem by pressing on Yes. Give a name of the modem. The name is not according to any functionality. In the next window, define the COM port which is connected to the serial cable. Be careful to not use the same COM port as for the Genprinter interface. You need a free COM port on the server what you connect to the Genprinter interface with a serial null modem cable. Confirm with a click on OK and define the serial parameters same as configured for the Genprinter interface and confirm by clicking on OK. Now the interface can be tested. When entering a single letter in the hyperterminal, it should be shown in the NewVoice interface monitor at the Genprinter interface. When you receive the message, it is sure that there is a connection, but it is not tested if the connection is working properly. The red line what is shown on this receive can be ignored. It is an information that the string is not received as expected. To test this, create a text file, fill in one row of text and save it somewhere. In the hyperterminal, now on top click on Transfer and click on Send Text File. Now select your currently created text file and send it to the interface. The message written in this text file should be shown in the interface monitor now. If so, the connection is set up properly and the interface can be defined for the third-party system. In the interface monitor, make a double-click on the interface to start the definition. On the first page, the interface general needs to be defined. With the first button, protocol can be defined, the name of the interface, the COM port settings and the COM port itself. Don't forget to restart the interface after a change. With the button INI file, the correct configuration file for this Genprinter interface will be opened and can be defined. Everything found here in the GUI is also shown in the configuration file. With the frame structure field can be defined how the frame looks like. This can be static or dynamic. With the first checkbox is defined how many printer lines the frame has. Also can be activated that an empty line delimits 2 frames, if more than 1 frame is received on alarm. With the second checkbox can be activated that the frame has a variable number of printer lines but always ends with a double new printer line. With the third checkbox can be activated that the frame has 1 line or field and always ends with a specified character. This character needs to be set beside. With the next checkbox is said that the frame has a defined structure with a start of text data between and an end of text. With the fifth checkbox is said that the frame always ends with a defined character and has a field delimiter. First value is for the ending character and the second one for the delimiter. Next checkbox is to set that the frame always ends with a specified character and contains standard printer lines. Fill in the character with which the frame ends in the field. Seventh checkbox is to set that the frame has a variable number of lines and no character which delimits the end of the frame, except an empty line when found. If not, the frame is ended with a communication. With the 8 checkbox is set that the frame has the structure with start of text, data between and end of text, but this time with the field delimiter what can be defined. Last checkbox is to say that the frame has a static value of lines and ends with special characters. Set up the frames as received from the third-party system. With the Filter Settings tab can be filter defined on which MobiCall triggers alarms. If the filter words are not received in the frame, MobiCall will not launch the alarm, only if the words here are received. With the Start Alarm settings can be defined the alarms what should be launched in case of a generic printer message from third-party system. There are 2 possibilities to launch an alarm. First is already set up by default and is called depending on a number with the fields below the structure is defined. Depending on the number received on MobiCall, the default offset 6000 will be added to the received number and this alarm will be started. With the first field below the drop-down menu you can define on which position of the line the number starts. With the second field below is defined how many digits are received for the number. When there is no number received and the launch of the alarm should happen on the received text, it is necessary to change the drop-down menu from depending on a number to depending on a text. Once done, the grayed out fields will change and 3 new fields to fill will be editable. First field is the first alarm number for the scan, second field is the last alarm number for the scan and the last field is the default alarm number. If the received text does not match the text in the alarm name or the special scan text field, then the default alarm will be launched. Make sure the default alarm number is not in the scan range, if so MobiCall will stop at the default alarm in the scan and launches it. With the checkbox below, the text for scanning is independent of the text for the display message can be activated that the display message text is at another position than the text for the scan. Once active, the fields below can be filled out. First field is to define the line on which the text for scan is received. With the second field is set on which position the text for scan starts. Next checkbox, which is active by default, said that the text for scanning stops at the end of the line. Since the line can continue very long, what is not recommended for a scan, it is possible to activate the checkbox below and set that the text for scanning stops at a defined position. Activate the checkbox and define a value on which position of the line the text for the scan stops. With the 2 checkboxes below is set that the alarm name is a substring of the scanned text received when the first checkbox is active, or that the scanned text in the frame is a substring of the alarm name when the second checkbox is active. This means that the alarm name or the received text is only a part of the scan to launch. Within the Message 1, UI Settings tab can be defined on which position in the received text is the message to send. First field is to define on which line the message 1 is received, with the second box is defined on which position of the line the message starts. Since the display message field mostly is limited to 16 characters on the DEC devices, it can be that you can't use the full message received. For this you can change settings with the checkboxes below. When the first checkbox is active, then MobiCall sends the line until the end in the message 1, what could lead to that the message is cut on the DEC handset. With the second checkbox below is set that the text message 1 has a fixed length. By defining the field beside is defined how long the text message 1 is read from the interface. With the third checkbox is defined that the message stops at a received character. Enter the character in the field beside, and if this character is received, the message stops at this position. With the first of the last two checkboxes is set that the message received will be used as display message for the alarm. When deactivated, MobiCall will send the message what stands in the alarm to the receivers and not the text received in the frame. With the last checkbox is set that unnecessary spaces and tabulations are removed. Within the Message to Settings tab is defined where the message to is read from. The message to is the display message after the pickup from the call, must be supported by PBX. By default it is set that the message to is the same message as message 1, since not all handsets supports message 2. With the field the message after the answer starts at the position can be defined on which position from where message 1 is also read as the text for message 2. By activating the checkbox it is said that the display message 2 is independent from display message 1 and needs to be defined, with the first field is set on which line the display message 2 is read. With the second field is defined on which position the message 2 starts. Again with the checkbox below is said that the message 2 stops at the end of the line, when the first checkbox is active. With the second checkbox is set that the message 2 stops at a defined position. With the Protocol Configuration Setting tab is to define a protocol if needed from the third-party system. First checkbox is to enable acknowledgement. When active the interface sends the code as defined below back on ACK or on NAC. With the checkbox right beside can be defined that the message is received from Genprinter and then handled in env module as external script. When frames are received with a field structure, it is possible to define the below field reset frame detection to enable a frame for a reset of the field as example to cancel previous received alarms. Activate the checkbox below to remove non-printable character during processing. In the Watchdog Settings tab, the watchdog function can be enabled. With the first field below the alarm number what should be launched on no watchdog received is defined. With the field below is defined for how long the watchdog alarm waits to launch. Default is 15 minutes. When 15 minutes no watchdog was received then the alarm is launched. With the field below is defined for how long the watchdog should wait with the relaunch, to give the technician time to check why the watchdog is not received anymore. The last field is to define the received string for the watchdog. When the word which is defined in the field is received, MobiCall counts it as watchdog. If none of the below checkboxes are active, the string needs to be received as it is written in the field. If it is not received exactly, it does not count as watchdog. With the checkbox find the string in input stream is set that the watchdog can be in the message received. With the checkbox find the input stream in the string is said that the message could be received in the watchdog. Be careful with this option. With the Settings tab Keep Alive can be activated that MobiCall sends a keep alive every X seconds to the third-party system. Activate the checkbox to enable the keep alive. With the first field the interval time is given, 10 by default. With the field below is defined how the keep alive string should look like. Don't forget to restart the interface after a change and test all your made settings.